When I first started my entrepreneurship journey and started trying to build my first online business, I felt lost for the first year or so, quite frankly. I constantly battled with procrastination or overwhelm and constantly felt drained, honestly. And the ironic thing is that when I went online to search for answers, all I found was more overwhelm. I just had no idea who to listen to and whose advice would actually even help me because so much of the advice would contradict one another. And once again, all it did was make me feel more lost and drained. And since then, and after struggling for that year, I've eventually gotten to the root cause and realized why I felt so lost and overwhelmed constantly. And today, I'm going to give you the fundamental solution that will also solve this problem for you, that is a lasting solution, because what I'm going to show you in this video is not going to be a hack or a tactic, but rather a fundamental solution that lasts for life. Because since then, I no longer struggle with overwhelm or procrastination or feeling drained because, once again, I've gotten to the root cause. And I will explain this to you with the help of these 7 friends here. And well, we'll start with number 1, the shortcut guy. And the reason we're starting here is because this is what not to do. And for context, the reason I put shortcut guy here is because I'm in an online community, and it's a great community, by the way. And the leader or the host of the community came out with something that he calls shortcuts. And basically, this is a solution that he's offering to the problem that people don't know who to listen to online, and they feel lost and overwhelmed, just like I did. And the solution that he's offering is that people can submit a form or book a call with him. And then what he does is he gives people advice based on their situation as to who to listen to, whose courses to buy, and what direction to take. And you may think, well, that's wonderful. And you know what? It is, because this guy, I know that he is truly trying to help. I forgot to turn the lights on here. Boom. There we go. Much better. So the guy is offering shortcuts. To be fair to him, the reason he's offering these shortcuts is mainly because there are inevitably people online who scam people. And at the end of the day, you don't really know who you're buying from. And this guy's intentions are basically that he actually knows the online space well. And so he can give people good advice as to who to actually buy from, who is genuine and who has integrity, and who doesn't. But the point is that nonetheless, people still don't know, like scams aside, never mind scams, people just don't know who to listen to in general. That's all. And the thing is that giving these shortcuts, helping people just, pointing them in a direction, looking at this pyramid here is only a hack. Now, to explain what this pyramid is, basically, I call this the wisdom pyramid. And the reason for that is because wisdom is simply the application of knowledge. And if you rely on hacks at the top, and by the way, it goes from hacks to tactics, to strategies, to principles, and at the bottom, fundamentals. If you rely on hacks constantly, then that's all you will ever know. And every time a new problem comes up, you're going to need a new hack. Whereas if you understand the fundamental, if you have a deep understanding of the problem and of the solutions, then you can apply that thing to loads of things. Let me give you an example. So using Pomodoro for focus is great. By the way, if you're not sure, Pomodoro is basically where you set a 25-minute timer and then you have a 5-minute break and then you get back to work. And that's a tactic, which doesn't mean it's a bad thing. It just means that to be able to apply this to different areas of your life, you have to understand what the fundamental is. And the fundamental is intention. So basically, if you want to go from hack to fundamental, you just ask, well, why? Why does this work? Or why is this important? And the reason Pomodoro helps and why it's important is because you you step back from your work and then you can be intentional. You ask yourself, am I on track? Am I doing the right thing? So on and so forth. Whereas if you don't know that that is the fundamental, you might just spend those 5 minutes distracting yourself. But we'll come back to that in another video, the pyramid itself. But the point is that offering people shortcuts and looking for hacks and shortcuts is a neat trick, but that only makes you reliant on hacks and tactics. And the reason I have this guy on a treadmill here is because hacks and tactics help you run faster, but on the same treadmill. And what most of us need to do is not to run faster or harder, but to get off the treadmill so we stop spinning our wheels. And that brings us on to me, because I've already told you that for the first year or so, I felt lost. And when I searched out there for answers, I only felt more lost. And eventually, and by the way, this is essentially what it was like for me and what it's like for most people. You're sitting here and you're just anxious or maybe just overwhelmed because of all the information out there. And I realized that the answers weren't out there, they were within me. Let me explain. So basically, I was searching for information out there when it was too much information that made me feel overwhelmed in the first place. So I didn't need more information. I needed wisdom. And there's that word again. So I too used to think that wisdom is only something that old men with long gray beards have. But really, wisdom is simply, once again, the application of knowledge. So basically, it's good judgment or the ability to make meaningful decisions. And I realized that the only reason we ever feel lost in life is because we either feel like we lack options or we have too many. And so we don't know what to choose and how to make a meaningful decision. And the reason for that, I learned, is because, well, once again, we lack wisdom. So you may be now thinking to yourself, okay, that sounds cool now. So I just need wisdom. So how do I actually develop wisdom? Well, that brings us on to person number 3. And that person is Aristotle. By the way, Aristotle, unfortunately, I can't exactly say he's a friend of mine because he lived a couple thousand years ago. But the reason we're talking about Aristotle is because Aristotle said, knowing yourself is the beginning of all wisdom. That's a quote from him. Knowing yourself is the beginning of all wisdom. And that is him there, by the way. So the point is that the reason people feel lost, and this is that brings us to the fundamental solution here, is because we don't truly know ourselves. We feel overwhelmed because we don't know ourselves well enough to filter out the information and the advice we get from other people. We don't know what actually applies to us. We don't know what is truly meaningful to us and what our strengths are and what our true path is in life. And so no wonder we feel overwhelmed, because it's hard for us to say, okay, I respect your opinion, but that doesn't apply to me, so on and so forth, right? Because after all, everyone is different. If a fish and a bird were to give each other advice, then one would tell one another to swim faster or something, and the other would be confused if it didn't know it was a bird. Obviously, it's a silly example, but it conveys or illustrates the point. There we go. And that brings us on to number 4, Neo. Now, if you've ever watched the movie The Matrix, then you'll know who Neo is. And I will admit that maybe looks a bit more like, what's the name? Morpheus rather than Neo. So, comment down below what you think. But the point is that when Neo went to see the Oracle for advice and for truth, the Oracle pointed Neo to a sign above the door. And that sign said, Kemet Noske. And then the Oracle said to him, do you know what that means? It's Latin for know thyself. And know thyself is a quote from Socrates. And we'll get to him. That's why I have this book here. This is Socrates. We'll get onto him in just a second. But the point is that once again, it doesn't matter what advice you get from people if you don't truly know yourself. Because think about it. You're only here on this earth once, and you don't possibly have enough time to try everyone's advice and follow everyone's path. So if you don't truly know yourself, you're going to end up going down all the wrong paths and potentially not really living the life that you want to live. Just like happened to me for my first year of my entrepreneurship journey. And that's why Socrates, by the way, Socrates is one of the most influential figures in history. And that's why Socrates taught people to truly know themselves and to think for themselves. And Socrates' teachings, unlike gurus online nowadays, because by the way, the person who got me into online business in the first place was an online guru who said basically, this is the way. Like, do this online business model, follow this online business model, do this, do that. And he just give us and everyone his way. And he explained that that is the way. But the truth is, there is no the way, there is only your way. And that's why Socrates said to people, don't be convinced by me, be convinced by the truth. And so instead of listening to other people and, just following everything they say without question, it's up to us to question. So follow everyone's advice without questioning it. It's up to us to actually question why people give us the advice that they give us and if it actually applies to us. And by the way, if when we start asking why, it's only then that we can become wiser. No pun intended, of course. Now, that brings us on to Ray Dalio. And Ray Dalio is the author of this book, Principles. This book is filled with wisdom, and Ray Dalio is an incredible figure. And the reason I have him here is because Ray Dalio said the happiest people discover their own nature and match their life to it. So once again, knowing yourself. Because the reason people feel unhappy and lost is once again, they have no idea how to make meaningful decisions and they feel out of control of their lives. And the reason for that is because they don't truly know themselves. And just to finish us off, Thomas Edison. The reason I have Thomas Edison here is because there's a quote from him that I love. He said, if we did all the things we are capable of doing, we would literally astound ourselves. And once again, the issue is that people, first of all, don't even know what they're capable of in the first place. And if they do, they don't really know how to apply how to utilize their potential and achieve those things that they're capable of because they don't truly know themselves. And just to bring this to a wrap, basically, the reason I struggle with procrastination is because I disliked my work because I didn't know how to apply myself to my work properly and actually didn't choose the right work that was the right work for me in the first place. I felt overwhelmed because I didn't truly know what truly mattered to me and how to filter out information from other people. And I felt drained because I didn't know which tasks to actually handle myself and which to delegate or eliminate and avoid. So that's all for today because I'm sure, as usual, this is probably dragged on, but I hope you found this valuable because this stuff here has truly changed my life. And this is one of the biggest lessons I've learned in my journey, that not knowing ourselves and not developing self-knowledge is one of the biggest issues and causes of our suffering. And so if you would like to get to truly know yourself, I have my community linked below. But whatever you decide to do, I truly wish you all the best, as always, and keep crushing it. All the best. Ciao.